We have been prepared for this for 3 years. And somehow in these 3 years of being prepared, I never thought this is how this would go. 3 weeks ago, it finally happened. We got COVID. And after 3 years of what I thought was a very well-prepared plan, every T crossed and I dotted, we had talked to my doctor about our plan, everything. With all my specialists, we knew that when I got COVID, it was not gonna be pretty.
Alrighty then.
And sure enough, it was not. Not only is this the story of what happened to me when we got COVID, but also some serious lessons learned if you haven't got COVID yet. If you already have got COVID and it's been a while, you might want to stay tuned because there are some serious things you might want to consider. You could get it again. I should have known exactly where COVID was going to come into this household, with me being at home full time and the university not having a mask mandate and Luke working full time. I should have known. COVID comes into this house and I start feeling very ill and not testing positive. Here's the thing, my chronically ill friends. Luke started testing positive instantly and had very standard COVID symptoms, but us chronic ill people know very well that our bodies do not react to viruses the same way as normal humans. And my body started rejecting just about everything, including my medication. And so life became very complicated very quickly. My blood pressure dropped and my heart rate spiked, and this is when things got complicated. We didn't know what to do. And in hindsight always being 2020, we are very happy that we did not call Emerge and did not send me into the chaos that is the hospital. Stay tuned for part 2 of this video because there's going to be 2 videos on me and COVID. Yes, we do end up sending me into hospital, but for a completely different reason. We'll get there. So we end up making the decision on the first week of me having COVID not to send me into hospital. This was a really challenging decision. However, my blood pressure is low, but is stably low. It's not spiking and coming down and going up and down. It's staying stable. And my heart rate, though high, is staying stably high. Essentially what's happening, my body is fighting the virus and supposed to be talking to my family doctor at the end of the week. So we get COVID on Tuesday and I'm supposed to talk to my doctor on Friday. Obviously, with us being COVID positive in the house, I cannot see my doctor physically, but we know we're going to talk to her on Friday. It is now Wednesday, and we know things are complicated, and we know this is bad. However, we have this plan in place. As soon as I talk to my doctor, we're going to get the antivirals, we're going to get things rolling, and everything is going to be okay. This was the plan. If only everything had gone to plan. As the week progressed, I did start feeling a little bit better, and I say that with a grain of salt. Being chronically ill, we say feeling better with a tad of grain of salt. My blood pressure started stabilizing, thank goodness. With that all being said, we knew Friday was coming and I was going to be able to talk to my family doctor. And she's amazing, and we knew she was there to support us. We had that plan in place, and we knew I was going to get onto the antivirals. This was the plan. On Thursday, I get a call from my family doctor's office. I speak to the head receptionist, and the receptionist seemed a little confused as to why I wasn't coming into the clinic. I was like, well, I can't come into the clinic, we have COVID. She then replies to say, well, you need your B12 injection. I usually go into the clinic to get my B12. Obviously, I would love to come in to get my B12 injection. However, that is not possible due to having COVID. The reception then tells me, well, then why do you need to speak to your family doctor? And I'm like, well, we have a plan in place. It's incredibly critical that I speak to her because I need to speak to her about my symptoms. I've been incredibly sick this week. I need to talk to her about my COVID symptoms. And on top of that, we will most likely need to send a prescription for the antivirals. Obviously, I wasn't 100% sure that that was going to be the call, but we had made this conversation very clear. My family doctor and I had talked about it endlessly over the last 3 years. That was most likely going to be the decision being made. She seemed very confused and flustered, and she's like, Kate, sounds good. I will turn your appointment into a phone call appointment. Lo and behold, Friday rolls around and I do not receive a call. About an hour after my appointment had passed, I did leave a message with my doctor's office to be like, hey, I'm supposed to get a call. And of course, that went unnoticed. It was honestly the most demoralizing moment because my doctor is absolutely amazing. And we had had this plan in place for so long. When you have this system that is supposed to happen, we still had hoped till like 9 o'clock that night that somehow my doctor would just call me. We just didn't know what to do anymore. I was still so sick. And yeah, I was getting slightly better, but we knew we weren't out of the woods yet. Luke had been so sick as well because he obviously had COVID too. We were just so demoralized. I honestly just didn't know what to do anymore. And yes, we could have gone to another clinic or gone into urgent care. The wait times right now are so insane. I knew that I wasn't sick enough to be urgent, and I wasn't well enough to be okay. It was this like teeter-totter. And that's something that a lot of people just don't understand. As someone who is chronically ill, you're always on this teeter-totter of what do I do, because you're never well enough and yet you're never sick enough. And you always have to play this balance board. And I think that's probably the biggest and hardest thing to explain to people who are well, that you're never on your deathbed because you're not dying, but you're not well. And so you always have to play this inching game of what do I do? And that has been my life the last 3 weeks. That has been the hardest part about balancing things. And I really thought that my doctor calling me on Friday, that Friday was gonna be that breath of fresh air of her just confirming what we were gonna do, what the plan was gonna be, and what decisions we were gonna be making. And we didn't get that relief. And unfortunately, that relief didn't come because the following week was worse. We were out of the woods of COVID. Luke was finally coming out of the COVID fog. He was finally testing negative. I wasn't quite testing negative yet, but we knew I was out of the COVID kind of symptoms. I was finally done with the sweating, disgusting. For any of you who've had COVID, you like sweat like a beast for like 5 days straight. Thankfully, didn't get any of the chest congestion that a lot of people get. I got all of the internal symptoms. My body fought this from inside, and it was not pretty. Because of this, I got some secondary complications. You are gonna have to wait for next week to find out what those complications were and why it was so bad. I really want to finish this video on explaining to you guys, if you are in some of the same situations we were in on week 1, what are the things I wish we would have done and how I wish we would have been a little bit better prepared. These are some of the hardest things to do because if you've already had COVID, first of all, you can get it again. And this is something a lot of people don't understand. If you had COVID round 1, like 3 years ago, I'm sorry to tell you, you can get COVID again. And even us, and this is something I've had to remind Luke of, yeah, we just had COVID. We can still get it again in like 3 months, 6 months from now. Yeah, of course, we're not gonna get it in the next 3 weeks, but like it doesn't take a long time for your body to kind of forget. I have no intentions of having or wanting to go through this anytime soon. My body is still suffering miserably. It's going to take me months to recover fully from this virus. Viral infections for people with chronic illness is no joke. Some of the things you're gonna wanna keep on hand that we did not have on hand are things like bone broth, chicken broth, vitamin C, vitamin D. You want to keep some of these things on hand to just kind of help you through this virus. I didn't eat for days while having COVID, and there's just a few things I wish we would have had on hand in the back pantry and been able to pull it out at the time. But I think the biggest thing that I didn't necessarily prepare for, and this is something that honestly is something you need to talk to people within your family unit, and this is something that we haven't even addressed yet. Having your full-time carer be sick while I'm sick and needing to take my meds and stuff was one of the hardest things I have had to deal with as a person with chronic illness. I had to take care of myself on my own, or a lot more on my own. We should have had a plan to have someone else either here or something in place to have someone help us, and someone that was willing to be in a COVID positive house, masked up, whatever the situation would have looked like, because we needed help. We needed another pair of hands to help us through this situation, and we should have been prepared. That's the one thing that, with my condition and my situation, we should have had a carer for me, considering my full-time carer was ill and not available, and we didn't plan for that, and we should have. So stay tuned for part 2 of COVID in our household, because the next episode is the mad dash to the emergency room and what happens after a viral infection hits this body. And we'll see you guys next week. Don't forget to slow your roll. Waiting for our next emergency video. If you missed the last one, check it out over here.